Thanks, Brian. Great to be here and to be joined with our Nutanix CIO, Wendy Pfiefer. Thank you so much for joining, Wendy.
Thanks for having me, Cheryl. I'm so excited about SEAL.
Well, we're excited about you. Most of us have been adapting to working at home for some time now, and we're navigating between work and consumer applications across multiple devices. You just saw some of the concerns about returning to an in-person office environment. Can you dive in more on the challenges that you see in the landscape that we're working in?
Yeah, for me, it's like everything that's happening right now is doubly complex. We've had to pivot to everyone working remote from the office. And now as we think about returning to work, we're going to put pressure on infrastructure in our offices to accommodate the new spacing that we need and the new social distancing that we need, but also infrastructure at home, because there'll still be folks needing to work from their home environments, taking care of kids, et cetera. So it's almost like a double whammy. We're going to be in hybrid mode for some time to come, and that makes for different challenges in terms of just physical space, how we scale our infrastructure, as well as how we kind of keep that balance among the needs of folks working remotely and folks working in the office and everything in between on a global scale.
So in terms of, as I mentioned, that we're navigating between consumer applications and work applications. Do you have any examples of that?
Yeah, the consumer app, enterprise app thing is kind of a big deal. I love consumer apps. I love my mobile phone and the games and all of those things. And consumer apps were built for a purpose. They were built to be easy to install, easy to use, really, really engaging. A lot of times they have the benefit of being built with modern technologies. And now that we're in these mixed hybrid environments, we're using these applications side by side. I might be on my son's gaming computer accessing this Zoom meeting, or, another example that I have is, sort of all the setup that you go through just to get onto the Zoom meeting. Zoom's a great application, but on the other hand, the ease of maybe FaceTiming someone, just making a phone call and pressing FaceTime and the button and hey, you've got that live conversation. Our old enterprise environment is living in this new consumer environment and side by side against these other apps. And, frankly, many times the consumer apps and the consumer devices, they're superior in terms of interaction design. And so that's a challenge for us in IT. How do we get to the point where our enterprise applications are performant and secure, and frankly, that our interaction designs are good? The other challenge we have is around optionality. There are so many consumer apps available and so many devices available, and optionality is good for productivity and happiness, but it's tough when it comes to security, to support, and all of those things that we do in IT.
Right. Yeah, I know, just for me, just trying to access my mail, sometimes going through Okta, and, sometimes I have to refactor, and say, yes, this is me. And I have to go through 5 clicks just to get to my email. We want it simpler than that. So
we do, and we,
oh, go ahead.
We want it simpler. We want it simpler. And frankly, we don't want to have to train people. Like, it shouldn't be so unnatural, that we need to be trained. If I think about using apps on my mobile phone, I kind of just know how they work. The interface makes that happen, but that's much harder with enterprise apps.
So, as we try, as IT operators are trying to speed their application development, they got to get applications up quickly. We've talked about a few things, but, dive into a little bit more on what's really critical to consider when you're talking about your cloud and your application needs and your infrastructure needs.
Yeah, the bottom line is we're in a mode where we need to have software-defined everything. We need to be able to quickly adapt, like we were talking about, to make better interaction designs, to make better cybersecurity. But we also might need to be operating across multiple clouds. we are straining our infrastructure. We have applications running in our data centers. Maybe we're running them over VDI, and there's some strain there on hardware. We have applications running in one public cloud. That cloud may be oversubscribed. So having the optionality of being able to, when we write our applications and when we write our services and functions, write them once and run them anywhere. Well, we need to make use of modern technologies. I am blessed to work at Nutanix, where I use Nutanix's operating system, AOS, and our hypervisor, AHV, across all of my clouds. I have large data centers all over the world, and I also operate at some significant scale in AWS and GCP, and I run the same applications across all of those environments, a true hybrid cloud. And, I also use products like our Beam product to help me to figure out where is the most cost-effective place to run my applications. And as something starts to scale out in a particular region or a particular application is more in use, which has happened in a lot kind of unexpectedly these days with our pivot to remote work, then I'm able to use more capacity in any one of those clouds or environments where it's available, and I'm able to do so seamlessly. That means that when I'm writing these applications, I don't have to worry so much about the environmentals. And I also have a common substrate on which to integrate. And that is a huge advantage for speed, for flexibility, for capability, as we're tweaking and changing these apps in this new normal, as we say.
Right. Well, as we're talking about multiple cloud environments, I'd like to take a moment just to bring up another poll, and let's get some input from the audience on what kind of environment that you have. So just to help us, be able to frame our conversation going forward. So if you could just share with us what, is your environment primarily consisting of? Are you mostly private cloud? Are you mostly public? Are you a hybrid cloud, or are you on a 3-tier architecture? And if you are using cloud, if you can just give us a sense of how much your applications are on-prem versus public, since you have a choice of where you want to deploy your applications. So if you could give us those answers, I'll give you just a moment. All right, let's see what the results are. All right, it's good to see, quite a bit of you are in a hybrid environment. And it looks like, not majority. Yeah, it's a little bit of a mix of on-prem versus public. All right, well, thank you for sharing that information. So Wendy, with that in mind, I know Nutanix, you mentioned you're a user, obviously, of the product, but you're also, it's great that you work for Nutanix, you know everything about Nutanix, but you're also a user. We promise the speed and agility of a public cloud with the security control of a private cloud. You touched on the product a little bit, but can you just dive into that, just understanding where people are on the call?
Yeah, I saw the answers to the poll, and I also saw a lot of people saying, hey, I'm using Nutanix to run VDI. And I think that's kind of the example that illustrates all of this. So I run VDI too. I run VDI from 2 vendors. I run Citrix at scale for those of my users in the organization that want to have persistent desktops. And I run Nutanix Frame at scale for those in our organization who need to have persistent profiles. And having that optionality, I run both on AOS. They help me to scale. Different workloads, different needs are addressed across multiple VDI choices. Again, having that optionality is huge, but also that's sort of an example of, almost everything we do now is in hybrid mode. There's just not one of anything anymore, whether it's the consumer devices and the open public network that we're connecting with our environments on, or whether it's this mix of hypervisors, VDI solutions. And by the way, that's not bad. That's good. That's actually the key to resilience. It's the key to our BCP planning, is to have this optionality, this ability to operate in multiple modes. But to do that efficiently, especially with all the financial pressures we have now, you know, as a CIO, I think about all of those things. I think about efficient operations, our costs. I think about performance, especially for employees who need to have really, really good performance. We have thousands of software developers who are accessing our networks from all over the world. And for those guys, they need to have a performance environment to make this this product that you know, that we're dependent on. We're not just dependent on it to run our companies, but really, you know, even these conversations we're having from home are dependent on infrastructure that IT built and IT maintains in multiple companies, not just ours. And so just trying to keep that in mind and understand all the mixed mode and keep that straight. We've got to simplify as many layers of that equation as we can.
Yeah. Well, Wendy, I know we're coming up on time, but you know, I just can't help but notice that, you know, most people on the call are saying they're running a hybrid environment, but earlier in the poll, we saw that one of the main concerns in going back is sustaining a hybrid cloud environment. So do you have any final advice of where to go from here as we think about returning to the office?
Man, I wish I had some ironclad wisdom. I'm worried about that too. But what I think is key is that we have the most creative people in the mix, the most creative and experienced IT professionals. And so the things that I can do in my environment to focus their skills on solving the complexity is huge. So I'm a huge believer in low code and no code tools and machine learning tools that enable us to free up our key people from the mundane tasks and the repeat tasks, and allow them to focus their skills on better interaction designs, better cybersecurity, better architecture for this long-term hybrid mode. We can't have death by a thousand cuts going forward. It's okay for emergencies, but going forward, let's take those non-important tasks and accelerate our use of machine learning in key areas so that our people can focus on creatively dealing with what is going to be unexpected for some time to come.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for your time, Wendy. That was Wendy Pfiefer, Nutanix CIO.